Cindy, you are up.
Okay, give me just a second. Just a second. Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Cindy Garloch. I am a professional home organizer with Organizing Remedies. I'm the cure for your clutter. I essentially help people live with less and organize the rest. Today, I'm just going to start with my presentation, and then we'll talk a little bit more about why we're doing this, who's doing it, that sort of thing. So I want you to imagine that you're leaving a networking lunch. You're crossing the street and you get hit by a bus. You're dead. Now what? A few days later, you become right away, you become an angel, and you want to go to over your house to see how your family is doing. Make sure they're okay. You know how to be a ghost because you've watched Ghost 50 times on Netflix, right? Because of Patrick Swayze and in his t-shirt. But as you're over your home office, your kids are freaking out. They cannot find a way to get into your computer. They don't, and that's where all the information is, all your names and addresses and phone numbers for all your loved ones that don't live there. And you're thinking, oh, this could have been avoided. Then you fly over your husband's office and he's freaking out because he doesn't know where the banking passwords are. He doesn't know where the utility bills, he doesn't know anything, and he can't get into your laptop either. He can't get into your phone, and he is freaking out. All this unnecessary stress that could have been avoided had you had a legacy file. 2 weeks later, you go again, you're flying over the house, and that you realize that the utilities are being shut off. Everybody's cursing your name for not leaving some information. They want to contact the bus company and your lawyer to sue for hitting you, but they can't find that information either because it's in your phone and they don't have the codes to get into your phone either. Your heart is breaking because you've let down your family in a time of need. They can't get to any of the information that they need because you didn't leave a legacy file. I don't want this to happen to you. We talk a lot about legacy files and legacy binders. They go by a lot of different names, but honestly, the reason I want to do this presentation is because the greatest gift you can give your family is peace of mind. And that's what a legacy file will do for you. So legacy file, kind of to define it, is a compilation of all your important and personal papers. A lot of people think about, wills and executors and powers of attorney and, financial documents. And I want you to think about that too when your loved ones need that information. But there's other information that I want you to consider in this masterclass that I think will make it a better legacy file and more valuable to your family. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to talk about it. My husband and I didn't want to do it either. And so it's kind of ironic that when I decided to do this masterclass, that I decided we should probably create a legacy file. By a show of hands, who thinks they don't need a legacy file? Is there anybody out there? Probably a couple of people out there. Most of us know we need one, we just don't want to do it. Maybe you think you're too young. Maybe you think you don't have enough assets. But the truth is, everybody needs a legacy file. Unless you think unless you're immortal, you need a legacy file. And I'm glad you're here today to get this process started. Why do I need a legacy file? I think it's pretty obvious, but 3 words: peace of mind for you and your loved ones. The peace of mind is the 3 words. When should you create a legacy file? It's in the title. The time is now. When I was asked to do this master class, I struggled with the topic. Organizing is a vast topic. Angel and I made it into paper organizing, and I still felt kind of lost. And then I thought, I want to do a subject that really would hit home, that would really help people, whether they're business owners or not. And that's where I came up with the legacy file idea. So I honestly believe that now is the time. It's in the title. Now is the time. We seem to have a little bit more time than we did, say, right before mid-March hit. We're not driving to and from work, so we have a little more time. If you drive a half an hour each day, you've got 5 hours a week. That is gain time. You're not getting ready for work exactly, and you're not meeting friends as much, unfortunately, but let's take advantage of the time. That's what I'm here to do, is encourage you to take advantage of this time. It does take longer than you want it to take to get this put together, but not as long as you think it'll take. And your peace of mind for you and your loved ones, honestly, is worth it. Now, you probably are wondering, I mentioned how long would it take? Well, the answer depends on a couple of things. On 2 decisions that you make. Let me share my screen here. This is a slide, obviously you can tell what it is, but the outside for your legacy file can either be simple, it can be a 50-cent binder from Staples, or a binder with a handle, a pretty file box if you want to really be real decorative with it, or just throw it in a file cabinet. This is what I've done for ours when I created it. I think you guys can see that. I'm not going to show you all my personal information. But the thing I like about it is that it has a zipper, so that if I put anything that doesn't fit in a sheet protector in it, it's contained. Maybe that's the organizer in me, but I want it contained. When I grab it, everything doesn't fall out, which makes total sense, but you just have to decide what you want to do. Now, if you can't decide what you want to do, just get a binder and get it started. That's my key thing to do, is just get it started. You can always make it pretty later. The other thing is the second decision is the inside. You can make it as simple or as detailed as you want it to be. Some people will spend, a couple of hours and make it really simple, and other people will put their everything they want everybody to know. And I want to encourage you to be a little more detailed than you think you need to be, because you have to remember, these are not normal circumstances. You are dead, especially if it's an emergency or an accident like a bus or a car or something like that. And people are not in their right mind. They're thinking, oh my gosh, they can't even think of their name, much less how to find your important information. So think about how detailed you want to make it. Now, this is something just in the planning part of it, but I have ours, and we'll get started with what goes in there. I'm kind of fighting this. I might have to change it to something different, but at least it's done, right? So I have, the first thing I have in there, because you're probably thinking, where do I start? Get me started. I'm ready to get started now, is the cover letter. This is your table of contents. Ours, of course, is in alphabetical order. And I know that sounds kind of really specific, but I think if people are grieving and not thinking correctly, if they're like, oh, I need to find the POA, P is the easiest place, it's just P, and then you can find it, or S for safety deposit box. Easy peasy. I hope that makes sense to everybody. The second thing you want to have in there is a budget. Even after death, there's some bills to pay, until the car sells or the house sells. And your significant other or loved ones may not know how, if they're online, if they're mailed. So creating an Excel spreadsheet with all that information on it can be really helpful. Again, in what I do is do monthly, biannual, and annual. So they know if it's mailed or online and how often, so they don't shut off your lights like the gentleman in the earlier scenario. And I think it's easier if you just do it in a logical order. How many of you have heard of the phrase KISS? Keep it simple, sweetie. Anybody? Yep. Well, that applies here as well. Make it as simple to navigate as you can. And that's something I can help you with if you're just like, I don't know where to put all this information. That's something I can help you with. Next is financial documents. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because I think everybody knows that's what goes in there. Your 401k, your bank and your credit union, cash, college accounts, rental property, retirement funds, investments, all that stuff. That's pretty basic information, and it's not very exciting, honestly, because you know you need it in there. You know, something to think about too is there might be some accounts that might just be in your husband's name, or they might just be in your name, and you don't have access to those. If you went to the bank and just said, oh, I need everything in my husband's name, they might look at you a little crazy. But I think if you have the account numbers and the death certificate, you might be able to get further along with the bank or the university or your investment advisor. And I'd also put beneficiary forms in here as well. One thing most people don't think about is somebody having their employer info or a contact at that employer. I know if something happened to my husband, like I know where he works, and I know, you know, he's named a couple of people that he's worked with over the years, but I wouldn't be able to get in contact with them because if I couldn't get into his phone. Fortunately, we both have the same phone code to get into our phones so that we could get to that information. The next idea I want to share with you, and most people don't think about this either, is a friends list. I'm not talking about your Facebook friends or your closest 30 people that you know. I'm talking about a short list where if something to happen to you, you would want to contact them. A best friend, maybe they live in Arizona and you live in Indiana, something like that, but you'd want to contact them. They might even want to fly to the funeral if they could, if it was, without COVID, or they might even want to send a card and you'd really appreciate hearing from them. So maybe the top 5 people or 10 people that you'd really want to contact, because remember when this happens, it's an unusual situation, and people, you want to keep it simple. Let's just keep it simple. The next thing is funeral wishes. I know nobody wants to talk about it. They don't. But, do they want to do burial, cremation? Where do they want to have their funeral, the cemetery preferences? And one thing I didn't really think about until my grandma-in-law died a few years ago was the service preferences. She had it all laid out, you guys. Oh my gosh, all laid out. We didn't have to make hardly any decisions. She knew what she wanted to wear. She knew what flowers she wanted. She knew what music. She knew the clergy. She had it all planned out. And even though at first it was like, really, that's kind of morbid to think about, whatever, we were the ones who were grieving, and it was so easy for us, so easy for us. And she had put money into that, so we only had to pay a little for the difference because she died at 98. So, flowers are a little expensive more now than when she did it 50 years ago. But why I suggest having that uncomfortable conversation is, less decisions, less stress, less energy focused on that, because you think it'll be easy. But then when you go to the funeral home and there's a bazillion things to think about, you're like, oh, I wish we would have had that half-an-hour conversation. And of course, leading to peace of mind. That's kind of a key. Next, we're going to do important paperwork. A lot of this is very self-explanatory. Your birth certificate, death, marriage, divorce, passports, all that stuff. Insurance as well. I mean, it seems common sense, but at the same time, you don't realize how many different insurances you have. Auto, health, home, identity theft, life, long-term care, maybe renter's insurance, all of those different things. Excel is going to be your friend again. And when you list them in Excel, I would do what I've been kind of mentioning throughout, in alphabetical order. Keep it simple. One thing I thought was really interesting, and maybe you wouldn't have thought of this, and I haven't created it yet, but I think it's a great idea, is legacy letters or videos to those who are left behind, essentially. It doesn't have to be a novel, and it doesn't have to be a 20-minute video. It's just little things you want to say. If you think of a story that you would want your granddaughter to know, write it down and put it in that legacy file. I recommend sheet protectors so it all stays together. Just write down those little ideas, or you can do a 2-minute video and just say, hey, I'm super proud of you, or whatever you want to share. And thinking about it ahead of time instead of, if you're facing an illness or something like that, you're like, oh, I wish I would have done that when I felt better. So just something to think about. Plus you have a treasured memory for sure. And it takes up a lot less space than that desk. Next, I want to talk about passwords. We don't really think about passwords, but think how many passwords we actually have. So you can actually have a password list. We actually have a password manager that's called Keeper. And I'll tell you what, it has saved us hours. There's a lot of them out there, LastPass, different ones. This was recommended by our financial advisor, $34.99. I would pay 10 times that. I kid you not. No more trying to figure out user IDs, passwords, what the website is, it's just so easy. We just bit the bullet and did it. And we're so glad we did, because now it even has face recognition. And so you literally put your face up to it and there's all your information. And the thing I like about it is that before it had face recognition, if you only had to remember one password. One password, make it difficult, but once you get in, you're in. So that's great. I mean, I just can't believe how much time it saved us. One thing people don't think about as well is our pets. How many of you have thought about your pets? If something were to happen, oh good, Anne-Marie, I see you've thought about it. I didn't really think about it until a friend of mine said that she had birds. This lady that owns the birds on the right-hand side, she just thought her kids would want the birds. And when she said, oh yeah, you'll get the birds when I die, and they're like, the birds are mean to me. Like, we don't want the birds. So it was good that she indirectly made that comment, because she's part of a bird club, and now she can ask other people in the club if they would take care of the birds, because they know how to properly take care of them. But you don't think about it, what vet do they use, or the food, or are they on medicine? Maybe they're on insulin. There's all this craziness going on, and you're not thinking about the pet, and then you find out 3 days later they're on insulin when they're lethargic or something. So it's good to know. And it's also good to know, ask the people ahead of time if they want to take care of your pet. So it's one less thing to be worried about. So our friend David is going to take care of our little kitty Sachi. So she has a home. So, little conversations like that we never thought to ask anybody. We thought, we have a friend that takes in cats, but our cat is 18 and a little princess. And so she wouldn't do well with other cats. We talked about, as well as like the flowers and burial and all that stuff. Yeah, it was super uncomfortable. But now I know exactly what Dwayne wants, and that gives me such peace of mind. So I'm so thankful for Angel having this class, so I could think about those things and also help you think about those things before it becomes a crisis. Powers of attorney, I think those are pretty standard. And let's see, I have a funny quote for you. Well, not funny, but in this world, anything can, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. And Ben Franklin said that. Did you know, honestly, I didn't know this. I had no idea. I hadn't thought about it. That's what part of this class is to start thinking about it. You can be audited by the IRS after you die. So it's important to have all that information. If you have somebody do your taxes, the name of the tax preparer, the address, the phone number, if you were to get audited, you'd really want to have that information. It would be in your tax documents, but it's just easier to have it all in one place. And finally, the will and estate. But that we all know that's what we need. We need an executor, powers of attorney, living will, healthcare proxy, advance directive, like your life support wishes. Again, not a very happy topic, but when something happens, somebody's in an accident and you have to make a decision, don't you wish you would have talked about it with them so you would feel at peace about what decisions you were making? One thing I want to mention too is if you're single, and a friend of mine mentioned this the other day, she's single, and we had a friend that passed suddenly who was single as well, and he didn't come into work. and they didn't know what to do because he was always on time and he was running the meeting. They ended up having to call the police because he didn't show up to work. They knew where he lived. They ended up having to call the police, break down the door to find him. And nobody had the information of his girlfriend that could help, or, you know, and it was just an awful, awful time. So when that happened to our friend, several of our friends who are single were like, that's not going to happen to me. So this particular friend actually is a friend with her boss. So she gave her friend, or her boss, friend, boss, a key to her condo in case she doesn't show up for work. And she also gave her the information of her sister, contact information of her sister, so that she could reach somebody. Because think about it, the people that you work with, and then something happens and it's like, oh, I know she had a sister named Diana and she lived on the East Coast. Well, that's going to make it really not very easy to get a hold of somebody right away. So little things to think about that I would have never thought about that. And then she told her sister where she has her legacy file so that she can find it. So her sister, you know, yeah, she'll be devastated when my friend passes away, but she has the information and can start getting some control of what she needs to do. Last but not least, we're going to talk about where to store a legacy file. So we want to store it where it's easily located so somebody doesn't have to search in the very bottom of some cabinet, you know, put it in an easy place, but obviously not in the open that says legacy file. I think that's pretty much common sense, but somebody needs to know where it is. It's, you know, and maybe a couple of people, because you might not think about it, where you tell somebody and they pass away before you. Well, that doesn't really do a whole lot of good. So maybe share it with a couple of close friends where it would be. One thing I forgot to mention is your passwords. Is you want to make sure that you update them every 6 months. You know how often we change them or we can't remember them? It's like, do you want to reset your password? It's like, yeah, because I didn't update it in Keeper, or I thought I did and I didn't, that sort of thing. So that's something to consider too. It's very important, so that, you know, you do all this work for somebody to have that information, and then it's not even valid information. So whether it's your passwords, your insurance agent, your tax, all that information that I mentioned in this masterclass is really good to stay on top of and update of every, I would say probably 6 months. So that being said, do you remember the scenario I shared at the beginning? You getting hit by a bus and watching your frantic family searching for your passwords and your bills and all your important info that they now need? It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. Take the time now to take care of it. I don't want you to have to be the angel flying over and watching your frantic family looking for that information. So I challenge you to take the time, even today or in the next couple days, grab a binder, grab a box, grab a file, make a space in your file cabinet, and just start gathering the information. Now is the time. You've got a little bit of extra time. I feel everything happens for a reason. There's a reason you're on this call today. There's a reason that you took the time to take this class, because you had some interest or you want to take care of it. Gather the important information that I talked about. I honestly, honestly, honestly believe that you will be giving your family the greatest gift that you can possibly give them: peace of mind.